welcome back to All United WFC. We're here. It is Old Trafford week, and we're not actually doing a show that's on Old Trafford specific because we have got a couple of other shows later in the week to talk about that. However, we are going to talk a little bit about Old Trafford towards the end. Everyone's here. Obviously, you can see on the thumbnail what the topic's going to be. It's in the title. We haven't done a show on this, so we thought let's get this in the diary. Let's talk about it as much as we can. Obviously, a lot of this is going to be speculation, things reported, people believe who they want to believe, all these kinds of things. So I'll throw that out there right from the start. And obviously, they might not sell. Who knows? There's a couple of things in the statement that we will get to as well. There's no guarantees in any of this. So let's just get into it. Firstly, Barry and Mark, thank you for coming on. And I can see Charlie in the comments. She was supposed to be here tonight. And I hope you do feel better soon, Charlie, on that one. But Barry and Mark, how are you both doing?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Yeah, good.
Good. Glad to hear it. It's I feel like we should be in a line here and kind of me in the middle. You're looking very similar today.
I just do that to Barry every now and again. I'll just look up to him.
The wrong way. Hello. How you doing?
Thank you. It's like some cheap quiz show, isn't it? Really, to be fair,
it is like Celebrity Squares.
Yeah.
Indeed, and I don't think so. I mean, it's unconfirmed reports, but
no, not this time.
Boys know about
He's an oak. Is that the new pale ale up in Leicester?
Sounds like a Wetherspoons pub. That does. But there we are.
Poison oak. Who would go there?
Let's start with the main topic then, Barry. I'll come to you first. The statement that came out last week, bit of a shock. I've got to be honest. Kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, it's been a mad few weeks, particularly obviously on the men's side with the whole Ronaldo saga and things like that. But what do you reckon to this then? Where do you think this is headed? Because like I mentioned at the start, there's a couple of I'll get the statement up in a second, but there was a couple of sentences towards the end. The whole thing is the statement header was plans to enhance our future growth. So that doesn't necessarily mean a sale. But how are you kind of feeling in and around it all at the moment?
Well, I mean, you think we're right. It was, for a start, certainly unexpected. I did not see it coming at all. I just sort of was coming home, and obviously that was the day that the Ronaldo news broke. And to be honest, that was really where my head was at, because obviously we'd had the whole Ronaldo interview coming out, and I wasn't particularly overjoyed with the way in which he had chosen to conduct his business. And so, yeah, that was really where my head was. So then when I got told, oh, he's gone, and by the way, it's come out on the website that the Glazers are looking to sell, honestly, I kind of felt like maybe Christmas was arriving, because it kind of seemed like we were just going to get rid of a couple of problems. But as you rightly say, there's no guarantees. When you read it through properly, the word sale is in there, absolutely. So that is something that could be there, but it could be that some people just add some money into it. It might be they sell a few shares to allow more investment into it. So, it's far from definite that anything will occur. We could just end up with exactly what we've got. You've only got to look at like Mike Ashley trying to sell Newcastle and how long that took. I think he was selling that club for about 7 years, and nobody wanted that. So, and then eventually they did. So we could be in for a long wait. But I think really most people are just rejuvenated knowing that there is going to be some sort of change, and that at least there is a change in the water, and that there might be something that comes from it. And I think that certainly has cheered a few people.
And Mark, kind of same question to yourself, but also correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the Glazers own 100% of United, do they? I think it's scattered amongst a few areas.
So the ownership of the family own United, and that's the key word. It's the family. It's not Joel and Avi and their late father. It's all of the siblings. They all have a share of it. So when I heard the news, I read the statement, and we've got we had a chat, Connor, you and I said it's the last paragraph that everyone's going to miss. Everyone's going to see it and not read that last paragraph. Am I happy the Glazers are selling? Look, they've never done me any harm personally, so I've got no major issue with them. However, my issue with the Glazers has always been the dividends they are taking. They are entitled to get the money back that they are owed, that they paid into the club, and pay that back because they took a loan. And I have no issue with that, but it's the dividends. It's the hundreds of millions of pounds of dividends that I have the issue with. Do I think they will sell it? That's an entirely different question. So, as Barry rightly said, the news of Ronnie left, so we're thinking, well, we've got rid of Ronnie now. And then this broke. In a way, it's what every United fan wants, is the Glazers to go. However, as Barry also said, rightly so, it could take years to get the right buyer. And, what I don't want to happen as a United fan is for them to come in and just go done and then just demolish everything, because we are in a state of rebuild. The men's team is in a state of rebuild. We've had 5-6 managers in the last 10 years. We've got to have that rebuild, but it's behind the scenes as well. The women's team, we're getting better facilities for them. We're getting better Carrington has better facilities for the men's side of things. So overall, what I don't want to happen is this to take away from what's going on behind the scenes currently at the club, because that could set us back even further.
You've raised some great points. There's some brilliant points in the comments that I want to get to, but I want to try and keep to the structure I've got, because otherwise I'm going to go way off piste with certain things here. But there's some great comments already. I know. It's because I don't want to miss people's comments out. I did just notice this one. I find it funny. Ronaldo's 31 to buy.
Could you imagine?
I don't think he's got the cash, to be honest. He's a rich man. I don't even think he's that rich.
Or the temperament, to be honest. But
no, but it was the day after, Bex came out and said he wants to do it. The class of '92 said they'll sell Salford to do it. It was in that minute, every United fan was going, yeah. But then you look at where Salford currently are in Division 2, going, maybe not.
Yeah, I think just speak to a couple of Salford fans on that ownership, essentially, and see that one. Lanzal, I can see a couple of your questions. I want to get back to that because there are some of the questions I did have written down. But I think someone has already answered your question a little bit further up. When do you think this can be completed in regards to a takeover? If I was to guess, I'd say at least a year. Personally, I don't know. It could be next week, but I think it's going to be a while. I don't know why anyone else thinks on that one.
Ultimately, what has to happen now is someone has. I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe has kind of said he's not going to do it. So the person that we thought was going to do it has actually said, I'm probably not going to do it. So you're looking at potentially a consortium buying us, being state-owned, which then opens up a whole other lot of questions, or a company of some sort. I don't think it's going to be quick. I think a year minimum, probably more, being honest, but I don't know.
I mean, whoever it is going to need to have boatloads of money. It's not an easy thing to do. So, it's not like saying, we've had a last minute holiday cancellation. Do you reckon you could jump in? It's only 600 quid. This is a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, what did Chelsea buy itself for? 2.5-3 billion, was it?
Something like that, yeah.
Knowing the Glazers, they're going to probably want a minimum of 6. Let's go to 6 to 7.5 billion to buy them out, and then you're going to want to throw in another. Let's round it up to 4 billion. So that's they're going to have a minimum of 10 billion quid just to get everything going. I mean, without going state-owned or major company like Apple or even Amazon, I'm struggling to think it. I mean, I'll put a fiver in. It's probably the best I can do right about now.
Yeah, I think
it's not even whether the fans can sit the money in, really, and that's why I think it could be a bit of a drip effect. Maybe somebody buys in a little bit, invests a little bit, and then that sort of reduces the sort of the amount of money it's going to cost for a full takeover.
The one thing about the Glazers and that they were and United, they were in consultation to do a fan share scheme. The Glazers were going to sell some of their shares or give some of their shares to fans, season ticket holders, and those kind of things. And now that's probably gone bye-bye. So we're all going to be in a state of flux, probably.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. This is where I need somebody like Stu Worley, because he understands. I'm just trying to find his message to him, because he understands all the different, because there's different types of shares and all these kinds of things that you could buy into, and A class, B class, and all these kinds of things that somebody like me, I don't fully understand. But the figure that I kind of came.
All right, I think United fans were getting what's classed as F shares, which are the same voting rights as A and B. I think that's right. Debs, by the way, let me know what happens because I haven't got it on.
Oh, is it the FA? Oh, the men's FA Cup. Of course, I was keeping an eye on the women's at 7:30.
Confirmed
Even
Preston will be playing Huddersfield.
There we go. Yes, if any United draw comes out, let us know. But you're talking about 10 billion. That's kind of the figure I got. Because if you look at Chelsea, who were bought for about 4, and they had no debt. They were completely debt free. You're looking at United. You're looking at about 6 plus the debt. You know what's going to happen with that? I think the Glazers probably want to incorporate that within the sale. Then you're looking at a guaranteed figure that the buyer would need for investment on clubs and things like that as well. So, yeah, there's plenty of
6 billion. It's a ridiculous amount of money.
But when you look at something like let's look at the word Apple, because everyone was on Wednesday, I think, or Thursday. Everyone's going. Even Carve Solikol, who was in Qatar, were going. Apple were looking at it. They've already made, apparently, according to Carve Solikol, they've used 5.7 billion as an opening bid. But they make like trillions of pounds a year. I mean, so 6.7 billion to a company that makes trillions is like Barry Iron kind of going out to have a burger.
Yeah, but we'd have to pay extra for the cutlery.
Comes with it, doesn't it? So it's got to be free on that.
See a charge for that, Barry. Anyway, you go off.
I was going to say, I said I wouldn't try and get someone gets sidetracked. I think Dev's just put that's a draw and a half. That is if there's some keep an eye on that one. So my kind of next question on it then, in terms of is there a way that the Glazer sell-up and the fan perspective changes? Now, because I kind of wrote this question down thinking there's a lot of, obviously, I think if you asked, 100,000 people in the United fan base, I'd probably say about 95% of them would say that a sale is the best thing for the club. But is there a way that this maybe is swung around and they just get an investor that comes in, or that something changes? And do you think fans' perspective would accept that? Or do you think now this statement's come out, they have to sell now because the expectation is there? I'll let either of you go on that one.
The minute you use the key word of have to, let's be very clear, the Glazers don't have to do anything. They're living reasonably comfortably off of the money that's being provided by Manchester United Football Club. I think the question, if you're trying to be fair about it and you look at it from both sides, at some point they must get bored of the constant negativity that's coming from vast swathes of Manchester United fans. And I think, the protests aren't helpful in that respect. It's just a negative experience around the men's side, particularly. We don't notice it so much over here on the women's side. It's not something that's necessarily spoken about as much. Maybe it's because, the funds and the money that go into it isn't quite at that level. But I suppose in answer to your question, you're never going to please all the people, Connor. Some people would be all right with investment. Some people wouldn't. Some people would be all right with the Glazers staying in. Some wouldn't. Some would be happy with them taking over. And then once it happens, they'll sit there and go, oh dear, that wasn't the best idea after all. So, it's hard to tell. But personally, I would prefer that they sold. But again, we've got to be very, very careful what we wish for, because just because they might sell doesn't mean we're going to end up with people that would actually like to hold the club. In some ways, it could be better the devil you know. So, but no, I don't think they have to sell. Would be my answer.
Yeah, I would agree with Barry. They don't have to sell. I think if someone came in to invest serious money, they would look at it and they might consider it. Look, United are being left behind by City and everything that they've got, but they're state-owned. Newcastle have now come in and they're state-owned. So United are getting further and further behind in the terms of what we can do as a club and what the owners can do. And there's only so much money we can generate per season. So if an investor came in and said, look, we'll buy 50% of your shares and we'll do this and we'll do that and we'll put so much money in, I think possibly the Glazers might, and the key word is might, go, well, can we look at maybe doing a staggered buyout? So you buy your 50% and then say in 3 years you buy another 25% and do it that way, slowly. I think most United fans might be happy with that because they can see as an end line the Glazers are going. I think so. I agree with. So going back, I agree with Barry. I don't think the Glazers have to sell. I think right now they're in a state of they want to sell, and there's a huge difference. The European Super League was a huge mess up for the Glazers, but it wasn't just. But the Glazers seemed to get the brunt of it. But Liverpool were in it, Chelsea were in it, City got away with it. All the European clubs, kind of, with the exception of the English Premier League clubs, kind of got away with it, with the exception of United, because it's the Glazers who were involved in it, and Ed Wood was involved in it. So, as much as it was a muck-up, actually, it's given supporters clubs like us and Rainbow Devils and all these other, we have a level of dialogue with the club, which if it hadn't been for the Super League, we probably wouldn't have now. So I see it both ways. I see them wanting to go, but also wanting to stay because they're making money one way or the other. So it's not a quick fix by any stretch. Ultimately, they'll go. It's just a matter of when, not if.
It's like it's like if you're a landlord, it's like you're going to get a consistent income from your tenants, but do you want that immediate cash? If you sell the property, isn't it? It's a bit like that. And Barry, you've raised me. Oh, not that one. Barry, you've raised the point, and Lanzell's put it a little bit earlier, or somebody put it a little bit earlier, which kind of leads me on to, because you just briefly mentioned it there. Do we need to be a tad careful what we wish for here? Because there's a lot of names getting banned about. I think Lanzell said he wouldn't mind. Somebody put about the Americans. Lanzell said, might sound crazy, I would love Radcliffe join with Dubai. So there's a lot of names getting banded about. And to be honest, I don't believe all of them. I just think everyone's getting linked because it's United. It's an easy sell. It's the same with transfers, which get linked to everybody. But there's a couple of names, I'm not going to name people, but there's a couple of names being banded about that does concern me if they got involved with United, purely because their track record with some of the things they've said about women's football, some of the things about, you can look at the human rights things and all these different types of things. What do you think on that, Barry? Is there a thing that we could sell, or the Glazers could sell, and we might, I think Deb put it earlier, we could actually be in a worse position than we are now?
100%. I've always said it, the grass sometimes will always appear greener. And you sit there and you go, this is the decision I'm going to make, and this is what we're going to do. I'm a bit worried about why Mark's got his head in his hands. Have we got somebody bad? What's happened, Mark? Everton. At home.
It's the one underneath it. The money's going out tomorrow. Right? Yeah. Anyway, carry on.
Yay. But yeah, I think I always say that you've got to be really careful what you wish for, because at the moment we know what we've got. But just because you get a takeover doesn't mean you're going to end up with somebody really good or somebody that's going to care. You could end up with somebody who, I mean, look, for all the anger that gets thrown about all the money in football, the Roman Abramovich taking over, and the takeover that happened at Man City, as annoying as it is, they really do put into the community with what they're doing there. It's based around the area that they're in. It's not just the football club. They do a lot within the community as well, which isn't something that I feel from the Glazers. So you're going to want somebody that cares. That's really all you want, but you can't guarantee that. And especially with the amount of money that we're talking about. I mean, let's be brutally honest, Connor. The kind of people that own this sort of money aren't necessarily known for being, philanthropists and the kindest of people. That's how they end up with billions of pounds. So, it's not like Alan Sugar was in charge of a football team for one, with Spurs. And, he's got his own BBC series where he literally, you're fired, and that's it, which isn't the nicest thing to say to somebody either. So, no, I think it's a dangerous game that we're playing, but I do also think that whatever happens, the club has to be more financially viable than it is at the moment, and it can't just be somebody's cash cow, because that's not cool for football in general, and it doesn't matter who the club is or who's in charge. I don't think there's many clubs that would accept what happened to our club 17 years ago as being a fair and sensible way of it occurring. And yes, they've given money, and yes, they've been reasonable in that respect. They have put money into the playing team. They haven't looked after the club in the manner that they could do. And I think that's the problem. But 100%, you've got to be wary, because, they could sell it next year, and we'll all be sitting in next year going, oh, they weren't that bad, really, were they? So you never know.
Is that the double-edged sword, Mark, with this? Because we could get somebody who really does flood money into the club and really does, do all of that things. But if they're not caring, let's say, for the women's team or, some of the issues in and around themselves and things like that, because like I said, there are some potential buyers that do really concern me. Is that kind of a factor in this as well? Do you think, because we saw what happened with Chelsea, there was a couple of potential buyers there, and the fans protested, against any potential new ownership. So we could find ourselves protesting again, but for a potential bid from somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, go back to Barry mentioned him before. From Newcastle when he took over, they're all ecstatic because they're getting rid of Freddie Shepherd, and then Mike Ashley comes in, and they'll think, "Oh my God, he's the Messiah. He's going to do all this," and then they couldn't wait then to get rid of it because what he did was take a sinking ship and make it even worse. What you don't want to happen is someone to come in and go, right, we're just going to demolish what you've done for the last 25, 30 years and we're going to get rid of all of it. We're going to start doing it our way. And then go backwards. What you want to do is someone to come in and go, I'm not touching it. I'm going to go and put money in and I'm going to let football people run the football club. And I think that's the most important thing, that whoever comes in and buys it, they need to leave people in place. And I mentioned it before, we are in a state of rebuild from the men. Coming up 10 years ago, we lost the greatest manager in my lifetime ever. But at the same time that Fergie left, David Gill left, and then Ed Woodward started that job, and Ed Woodward didn't know what to do. So we were in a constant state of rebuild, manager, CEO, manager. And that's the problem. We need someone we just need to come in, stabilize it with whoever it may be, and go, we're going to get everything back to normal and then build on top. Look, Lanzell's put into the comment, no to the Ricketts family. Absolutely. You don't want them anywhere near it. There'll be people screaming out that they don't want to be state-owned because of what they do to people in their own country. So why would we want them to do it here? But on the other side to it, you can see, well, Newcastle have now state-owned, and actually Newcastle have poured hundreds of millions into Newcastle and their women's team. So actually people are going, well, maybe it's not all bad. There has to be something, there has to be some sort of middle ground for us all to meet on. And what I hope is that the fans, whether it be on the fans forum or the people on the fans advisory board, they're at least consulted in a way on the next steps to know where we are up to know if this is to get the fans on side just for a bit, to go, look, we're just not going yet, or is it a double bluff on the fans? It's completely double-edged sword. It really is. We don't know.
I think Deborah's put it there as well, as the supporters club will continue to push recognition of inclusion. I think that's the key. I think the supporters clubs are going to be very key in this. They've got to be included on the women's side, and obviously must as well, and everyone else that's kind of associated with the club.
But also, isn't this one of the things, it's almost like one of those with great power comes great responsibility sort of quotes. With massive fan numbers comes a huge diversity of opinions. And this is what I mean. It doesn't matter who it is or what it is that happens. There are going to be people at this club that are happy, and there's going to be people at this club that are not happy, and there's going to be wishy-washy people who float with the wind depending on what's going on. And I think that's the difficult part, and it's just which one's going to be the most vociferous and obvious.
What you want is, as Deb said, the fan base or the supporters clubs to be involved in a decision of some sort, whether it's the going, the staying, this is what we're planning, this is what we're not, whatever you want it. You want there to be conversation. And as I said before, if it wasn't for the European Super League, us as a supporters club, we probably wouldn't have the level of dialogue, as I said before, that we have now with the club. The Old Trafford game is this week. We have, between Debs, Shane, myself, we've been having emails going back and forth between officials of the club almost every day. And without what happened, in the ESL Super, that debacle, we probably wouldn't even have this now. We've got, we've got people saying, we're going to move your MUWSC banner to where you are on Saturdays. Is that okay with you guys? We're going to move, these things to get you guys fitting. And we're like, whoa, don't go, don't do anything like drastic that people are going, what are you doing? But these are the kind of things now that whatever happens going forward, they have, whether it be with the Glazers now or Jimmy Bob and Sue Perkins in 5 or 6 years, they have to have a level of dialogue with the fans, because without the fans, there is no team, and that's the end of it, and that's where it has to go.
No, I love the idea of Sue Perkins being in charge of Man United.
It'll be fun.
$500,000 Sue, that'd be unreal.
Mel's director of football for you, Barry.
Damn it.
These jokes going way over my head. I think I'll glance over that one.
A light lunch, Barry.
Yes, nicely done.
Does anyone in the comments know what they're talking about? Or was it just me?
Didn't one or both of them do Bake Off as well?
Yeah, they both did Bake Off.
I've never watched Bake Off, so I couldn't tell if it was both or one.
Not me. Let's get to a couple of these comments a bit further on. So Charlie's talking about that. The only reason the Glazers got away with so long is because United are a juggernaut. I mean, yeah, whoever comes in, United will be sustainable anyway, just because of the name. But yes, I agree with that last point there. We've seen clubs go under from people taking money out and from owners, and just the neglect of the team. You've got to invest to move forward. What's on about here? The pies would improve. I've never had a pie at Old Trafford, I've got to be honest.
It's not because they don't have any cutlery.
Hey, people at Old Trafford that I have seen with them do eat it with a knife and fork, though. So
I can confirm.
Whoa!
Without the knife and fork.
For a start, there are no knives in the concessions downstairs. There's forks, no knives.
I'm pretty sure there is. Or am I just imagining things?
I know, because I have a pie every game, or almost every game.
Okay, maybe I'm just seeing things then.
And they do, I'm going to start selling it now. They do a cottage pie, and it's fantastic.
There you go. Let's get on that. They are boiling. They are boiling, Charlie. And I can remember taking my first bite into that and going, this was a bad idea.
Yeah, I like I said, I've never had one. I see the steam coming off from it. No, not for me. Not for me.
What? Do you eat a cold pie?
They're better a bit mild than hot.
Oh, the cottage pie, thanks. I mean, I'm having to agree with Ref now. I mean, that's just... The cottage pie is so good. It's run... Oh, I can't wait for that.
As we're right in the middle, it's a bit like half time. Can we just take a moment to celebrate the poll that you put out about...
Oh, we don't need to talk.
Just remind me how well that went. That was it 91% in favour of you're a heathen and should never be allowed near a burger again? Was that about right?
Yes, it was. It was 91 to 9, I think it finished up on.
Oh,
but people,
how many people?
Just short of 100, I think it was. So there we go. It's like that. What's that game show off? We asked 100 people, 100, whatever. And
pointless.
There we go.
Pointless. A bit like cutleries for burger.
So we are. Sang, there's nothing wrong with me, but there we are.
I'll tell you what's wrong with Connor is that he spelt his name wrong. He's not going to be happy about that.
I know, I just ignored that one. Deborah spells it right all the time, though. I'm really happy with that. Very carries is that. Do you know what? Sometimes I do, but a lot of places don't let you in now with them, so you can't really do that anymore. Yes, see, Sarah knows. She backed me up on the tweet as well, so I was happy with that.
I don't know whether I'm disturbed.
I think Sarah just felt sorry for you.
No. There's plenty of us out there. Well, clearly not, but there's a few of us.
Hidden in plain sight is scary.
Oh dear! I had a question just before all of that started, and then the pie coming through. Here we go. It's Lanzell's one. New stadium or refurbishment of Old Trafford may take 7 to 8 years. Now, I wanted to kind of get to this anyway because there's so many angles we could throw this question out. I've got about 3 or 4 questions off the back of this anyway. But what? Just very briefly on that question in particular, Barry, what would you? I'll go for what would you prefer rather than what you think is going to happen. Actually, would you prefer a new stadium or would you prefer to refurbish Old Trafford?
I'm a little bit old-fashioned. It's Old Trafford, isn't it? And it's like I wouldn't. if you knock it, it's like Wembley, right? Wembley had the Twin Towers, and it was what it was, and it was iconic. And it's still the home of English football, but very different. I don't know how I'd feel if we knocked it down and started again. I think all that history, everything that went with it, it goes with that knocking down. It does. It disappears because it's not the same. So I'm going to have to go refurbish. I don't think if it's able to do and to make it so that it's safe for everyone and that it's all right and we could refurbish, I'd rather we did that or did a little bit around the stands. I wouldn't want to knock it down and start again a la Arsenal or Spurs because it's, I don't know, like I say, I'm an old softie at heart. I wouldn't want to lose all those years of history.
Yes, I think as Ian's put there, 112 years. It's not like it's a young stadium anymore. It's quite obviously it's changed a lot in 112 years. But I mean, Mark, what would you prefer to happen? Would you prefer a new one or would you prefer some kind of refurbishment?
I am completely drawn on it. I really am. I keep going. Any day I'll change my answer. I flip-flop every day. I'm very lucky, and Deborah and I, we're very lucky. We sit in the only original part of Old Trafford that's left. We sit in Sir Bobby Charlton stand for every home game. And walking down the Munich tunnel every game, you kind of get this bit of goosebumps. You kind of get this little tingling going through because you're walking around that. However, when you sit in it and the roof's leaking, you go, oh, actually, you know what? Just get a new stadium. I've done with it. However, then you don't want to miss the feel of Old Trafford. And I know it sounds stupid to say the feel of Old Trafford, but I'm 40, late 40s. I'm not going to say how old because it'll give away Barry's age. And then I still get that little excited feeling every time I go into Old Trafford now. I've been going, I've been a season ticket holder for more years than I care to mention. I had hair when I first started. That's how old I was. That's how long ago it was. However, if they do a new build, it's not for me, and it's not for Barry or you, Connor. It's for the next generation. And you have to think about, would a new modern stadium be better for them than it is for us right now? So I flip-flop. Today, I want refurbished. But tomorrow, like I said, I want brand new. However, that will all change when I'm in Old Trafford on Saturday because it'll be the only thing I want is Old Trafford. So
I'll be honest, Mark. I have the same feelings over my new mobile phone. Shall I go refurbished or brand new? I don't know.
It's Old Trafford means different things to anyone. The other side to it, and it's actually the more, I suppose, if you're knocking Old Trafford down, where do we play? Because that's the other side to this. There isn't, when Tottenham knocked down Whitehall Lane, they could go to Wembley. Where is there for us to go to and play?
LSV.
Yeah, but Barry, there's a slight problem with that. You've got to fit in 55,000 seats.
Oh, get mixed up.
So that's the other side to it. Where do we go? Look, honestly, I think it's going to be a refurb. I really do. I think it would be easier for them to refurb because then they can still keep matches going on. Rather than knock it down and go somewhere else.
It's a real tough one because, like I said, I've obviously that's all I've known. Old Trafford has pretty much looked the same through my entire life. I think when was the last bit of refurb? And it was mid 2000s, wasn't it? I was only about kind of 7 or 8 when the last bit of work. So for most of my life, it's looked the way it has.
It's funny because I was watching a program on MUTV. It was called It's years and years. It's like 5-6 years old. It's 1,000 goals in the Premier League, and the first goals when you see it, there's no Stretford end, and you're like, oh, hang on, that's a bit weird. Where's the Stretford end? And then you're thinking, well, then 6 months later, you're seeing like there's a tier of starting to appear the Stretford end. You go, oh, there it is, and that's the problem that you've got is that for me, I can remember the Stretford end being demolished. I can also remember it. Obviously, I remember it as it is now. For some people, they only know it as it is now.
Well, that's the thing. It's for me personally. I said it's a weird one because obviously I'm not a season ticket holder. I don't have the same kind of affiliation, I guess, as regular. If you're there, like yourself, Mark, there week in, week out, you've probably got a different experience. For me, I look at stadiums like the Spurs Stadium, as much as I don't like to credit rival teams. The Spurs men's stadium is just, people could argue it's not got the history with it, it's not got that, but I mean, as a stadium, as a place to go to, it is.
Well, there wasn't much history in White Hart Lane anyway, was there?
No, but a couple of weeks ago we were at the Emirates. It's to me, and I don't know about you, Barry, it felt a bit soulless. Whereas
this is why when I walked up to it and I went, it's not exactly Old Trafford, is it? This is what I'm talking about. It's like Highbury might have been quiet, but it had all of that history, and it's all very well and good modernising, but modern doesn't necessarily mean best.
You've got the Bernabeu it's an incredible stadium. The Camp Nou it's an incredible. The Maracana, they're incredible. But for me, 15, 20 minutes down the road is Old Trafford, and that to me is just the ultimate stadium. Yes, it needs redeveloping. Yes, it needs doing up. Yes, they need to fix the roof over where I sit, because when it rains, I get wet, and I've got a roof over my head. Yes, they need to do those things, but it's still Old Trafford, and it means Old Trafford means so much to different people, but for different things. The legroom, yeah, I agree with.
Yeah, if you sit in the quads on the corners, you get next to no legroom if you sit in the corners. I know they've got the standard where the TRA are now, and obviously the old singing section where we obviously are on Saturday. Like, it's all right, but if you sit in where the actual away end is, or diagonal to that, there's next to no legroom there. I can tell you that. So that would be something. And
I think that, but going back to it, is that you want a stadium that's got a bit of something, a bit of Tottenham's ground is fantastic. Let's not kid ourselves. What they've done is fantastic. But if you ask Tottenham fans, would they prefer the new stadium or go back to White Hart Lane? Most of them might say go back to White Hart Lane. West Ham fans, the London Stadium, they're dying to go back. They would love to go back to Upton Park.
Yeah, I've certainly heard that's particularly from a West Ham point of view. But yeah, I think, Lanza, you've kind of led me on nicely because obviously we're talking a little bit in terms of what this means for the women's team and things like that. New owners, potentially a stadium for the women. That was one of my questions that I'd written down in terms of what do we think is going to happen then with this? Because obviously we're at LSV at the moment. To be honest, I can't really fault LSV as a stadium. I think as a ground and the facilities and everything else, I think it's right up there. When you're looking at that, some of the grounds you go to in the WSL, I don't think LSV is far off the top. But there is obviously, we don't go over the access issues and all these kinds of things again, because everyone knows what the issues are with it. Barry, what would you like to see if we were taking over? If you're sat down with the new owners in an interview or whatever, and you're talking about the women's team, what would you ask from them, and what would you kind of look for, do you think?
Well, I mean, I like LSV. And I like LSV because whichever way I'm coming, whether I go to Old Trafford, whether I go to LSV, it's much of a muchness for me. I'm in my car, and in fact, LSV is probably a tad closer than Old Trafford is to me. But equally, I also like this idea that your academy team can play next door to your ground. And if there was enough space around Old Trafford, it would be nice to have that ability to make our own sort of custom 10,000 seat or whatever if we wanted to. But also, I would say from that I do feel that women's football is getting to a point where we should just all be using the same stadium anyway, because it's a lot easier to do. So I'm sort of a little bit drawn, I think, a bit like Mark was earlier. I couldn't necessarily give you the same answer each day. There's days when I feel like we should all just be playing in our men's stadiums. And then there's days when I feel like we should all just be helping out, because let's be honest, the sort of Morrisons, for example, and other supermarkets are available. But all these other places that are around LSV, they do a roaring trade when we have people coming in as well. So, I'm not so convinced that the stadium is that massive to me. I think really all I want from any owner, whether they're new or whether they're the Glazers, I don't really care in that respect. I just want them to care. I just want them to care. I mean, there was a women's team, and then as soon as the Glazers came in, they got rid of it because it's not part of the core business, and that told us everything we needed to know about what the Glazers were in it for. Now, 2018 came round, and they did decide to go down that route again. I just want them to care, not to do it just because everybody else is doing it, not to do it for any other reason other than women's football is on the up, and it 100% deserves the platform that it's being given. You know, we've had a fantastic Euros. Jill Scott's won I'm a Celebrity, spoiler alert. So all of those sorts of things, and I think that's where we need to put our focus on. Just care. That's all I want. Just care. Give them the opportunities that they deserve, and just care.
Yeah, I think, Mark, where do you stand on this then? Because, like I said, we know the issues. Ian's already put it in the chat about location and that kind of thing. Would you like to see a kind of maybe a Man City model where you've got almost like a big campus and you've got a few grounds in and around? Chelsea, obviously, at Kingsmeadow, they bought that for the under-23s. Now the women play there. What would you like to see?
So, I mean, twice in a night I'm having to agree with Ref. Like, it's all about the location. LSV, for me, my own personal thing, I don't like it. I don't think it's fit for purpose. I just think you're never going to grow a crowd there because it's too hard to get there. That's the bottom line on LSV. And since day one up until now, we've been fighting for the club, and they have done now to get a bus running from Old Trafford to get people to LSV. And people are still not taking that opportunity to use it. So do I think we should get a smaller stadium? Yeah, but going back to what Ian's put in the comments, it's location, location, location. Where? You can't, there's nowhere. The problem you've got is where you build it. Now, I know, and it's been well reported, that the Glazers have been buying pockets of land around Old Trafford. That's a well-known fact. Now, do we think, can they build a stadium? Yeah, but the problem is that for people who've never been to Old Trafford, you've got a railway line running right down the back end of the Sir Bobby Charlton stand, which is still used. So you can't build on the back there. Then you've got your car park, so you're going to lose your car parking to build it. So it's the point of where you're going to put this new Academy Stadium. Can they do it? Yeah. Should they do it? Yeah. But it comes back to the point of where. Or could they go and buy another ground like Chelsea did with Kingsmeadow? Yeah, they probably could. There's lots of small grounds around. There's on the motorway near the Trafford Centre, there's the AJ Bell Stadium, which I know is, I'm pretty sure Salford are going to end up getting it, but that was up for sale. You've got Gig Lane, which is 10 minutes down past my house here. That's not being used anymore, really, so they could buy that if they really wanted to. They could buy something, and United have got a history at Gig Lane as well, which, is fine by me. So the answer is yes, they could do it. Yes, they should do it. It's just a matter of where they're going to do it. LSV to me has too many problems. You look at the Chelsea game and the debacle of getting your car parked. Barry was there 4 hours before kickoff. I was there roughly around the same, just so I could park my car because we all knew what it was going to be like. The infrastructure at LSV isn't great. So you want something that's on, has got, public transport hubs to get there. You want all those things worked out. So those are the major issues for me anyway with it.
Yeah, it's a real tough one, isn't it? Because I think, Lanzo, in your original question, we were talking about stadium. This is going to take a while. You look at how long some of these stadiums, cities a campus, as I call it, didn't just pop up overnight. That took years to put all of that together.
And you look at that campus now, they're getting a cinema put in there now. They're making it like a little city from a city kind of thing. And rightly so. And I understand what they're doing it. They're trying to create, a proper campus for students and for everything else. I get that. Just around Old Trafford, we haven't got that room. We've got hotel football, we've got car parks, we've got full car garage, we've got, the other, at the top end of St Matt Busby Way, you've got Little Lou Macari's chip shop. I don't want that to go. It's legendary.
Yeah, my cousin always used to talk about that. It used to be a season ticket holder, I think, from 88 to 2012, I'm going to say. And he always used to talk about that, place.
That's the point. Around Old Trafford, there's all these bits that are of history. And those are the things that if you knock down a stadium to build a new stadium, you're going to lose part of the history of, the club in a way.
No, I agree on that one. I'm going to come back to Old Trafford in a second, so I don't want to talk a little bit about obviously the game coming up and talk a little bit about what we saw at the weekend with Newcastle. But there was a question a bit further on that I just want to come to you, Mark. So you a little bit more knowledgeable, I guess, on the comings and goings and all things that happens in between from this one. But Sarah asked earlier on, it says, will Takeover affect new signings, new contracts? And it was a question I had written down in terms of, do you think this disrupts day-to-day operations now at United? Do you think that since the news has come out, or do you think it is just business as normal and what happens at the top will just stay and everything else?
I don't think it changes anything. The club will have its own targets to look at and to do. They will just be business as usual. The sale will predominantly be being done behind closed doors for the Glazers. The club won't really know. I don't think the club will have a say in it, but I think otherwise they'll just be getting on with football matters. They'll be looking into the January transfer window stuff now. There won't be getting players on new contracts. It'll have no impact, I don't think, at all.
No, that's fair enough. And to be fair, I agree on that one. I don't think it does. There's enough people in board level positions and all things, managers and all kinds of things in and around Manchester United that just get on with it. I think people underestimate sometimes how many people actually work at United, how many management positions there are, and all things in and around that as well. What's TJ putting in the bottom? Having a good women's team is good PR. Look at Barcelona. Barcelona women, they couldn't win the Champions League, though, could they? So we'll keep them to that, albeit they are quite a young team. So there's that as well. But and TJ's almost backing up what you said, January is way too soon to be affected by this. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people, I guess, in and around football, particularly United, obviously, just because we see it more often, that just think transfers. Some transfers do genuinely happen late. If a situation changes, someone's available. But a lot of transfers have already agreed. The window before. Just because you didn't get them in January or you don't get them in the summer, it just rolls on to the next one and you try and get them.
You don't always do that much business. And you think about the women's team, if they've been given a budget anyway, then they'll still have to work within that budget. That won't change. They won't all of a sudden go, the budget that you've got now has been reduced. Not in the women's game, because it's not that large. The men's one might, but certainly not the women's.
Yeah, I think with the women's side of the transfer window, they would have looked at this January last year. They would have been looking. They'd look a year in advance for the women's one anyway, because the women's game is completely different to the men's game because they're all short contracts. So they're looking at, they might look at who's out of contract in January or get someone, and then they'll start to work then. With the men's one, as you said, Connor, it's right. We'll give you 58 million quid now for Casemiro. Will that do? Great, sorted. Come on in. That's it.
Yeah, and Lanza's put there as a club. I think most. I agree. Certainly,
the women's team, only fullbacks that you might potentially want to get. An old Diane Caldwell sort of thing, or a Senior Bruyne. Maybe just to fill that gap. But that would be the only thing I could foresee myself.
Yeah, exactly. What's Tita say? I feel like even Polly's influence won't necessarily start showing in Jill Chat. I think it'll be even later than that. You might see some of the things that she does. And to be honest, I think Deb said it when she came on when we were talking about Polly in particular. You probably won't see a lot of what she does anyway. I think a lot of her work will go unnoticed. There'll be people in and around the club and people associated with the club that will see a lot of what she actually does, rather than.
I think for me, the point that I raised to someone is when Mark last won the Manager of the Month. You look at that; he had his all backroom staff with him. You look at that team then, and you look about what Casey started with. It was started with like 6 people. He's now got 20 backroom staff. The women's team is growing as a whole, and I think Polly coming in is only going to make it that much better, and she's going to definitely have an influence. That's for sure.
For sure.
Agreed. Right, a quick fire question before we go on to the last kind of brief conversation on this one. Then, new owners come in. what is the one that you can only pick one thing for the women's team? What would you want them to do? Let's say they came in next week. Obviously, I know that's completely unrealistic. It's not going to happen. But let's say they came in next week. What is the one thing? It could be a contract. It could be literally anything. I know that the owners won't have too much involvement in this, but what would you want them to do or to look at first?
I would like them to put whatever money is necessary for contracts to be renewed. Particularly if, all right, mate, Honor and Alessi, I'd like to see the two of them signed up. And I know that there's lots going on around that, but I would still want to see, excess money if need be. I don't want to lose Honor and Alessi, not really. I like them too much for that. And I'd like them to ban cutlery from LSB.
Do they even have it in the food? I've never eaten it. That's fair. I've got to be honest.
I don't think they've got it, Barry. I don't think they've got it. My answer is slightly different. Don't change anything. Don't touch it. Just leave it. Let the people who know what they're doing run it and stay the hell away from it. It's that simple. Put your money into the club and let the club spend what they want to improve the men's team and the women's team, but do not touch it. End of. One of the main criticisms everyone had of Ed Woodward was that he wasn't a football guy. And they're saying that, don't let non-footballing people run a football club. If these people that come in do not know how to run football, stay the hell away from it, let the footballing people run it and leave it.
Would you, Mark, increase the budgets? Would you say to them, just put a bit more money into the women's side of the game? Or
well, the point is, Barry, we don't know what the budget is.
No, I know, but listen, I don't know of a single person in the world who's ever said, I'd like to give you more money, and somebody's gone,
But the thing is, if you come in and you're giving a budget to the football club, that should include both men's and women. So if they're including them, if they're upping the men's one, they'll have to up the women's one equally. So don't touch it. Leave it. Just stay away. Walk away from the table. Let footballing people run it, and that's what I want. Because you saw, Barry and Connie, people who watched the Arsenal game, you saw what it meant for them in front of their fans. So prospective owners would see that, and hopefully they go, yeah, we're not touching it. We're leaving it. We'll just put money into it. We'll improve things and everything else, but we ain't going to touch it. That's what I hope.
It is a fair point. I do agree with that. There's a couple of comments, really good ones that have just come in. 100% agree with that. Ban signs. Yeah. There is one frustration for me at games. Obviously, I know I've not been at many this season, but that is the one. Especially like 10, 15 minutes before the end of the game. People at the front were like, come on, to support the team. But that's over that before I go on a rant. TJ's put a good comment here. It's rather common billionaires to come in after buying a team and try and get their fingers into the gears. Exactly what's happened at Chelsea with Todd Bowley and the signings that he's trying to make. He came in, backed Tuchel with all this money, gave Tuchel a load of money, and then all of a sudden sacked him, 7-8 games into a season. So you can see that. A quick fire one, I guess, from Lanzo. Quick question to the panel: with new owners, do we stick or were you both doing it at the I knew you were. I was wondering, why are they both writing at the same time? What are they doing?
I'll come on that one first, Connor. I would stick with Richard Arnold because he knows what he's doing. Give him time. Have faith in him. Leave him.
Yeah, I'd stick an all.
Yeah, and a full house on that one. And honestly, Deborah, I genuinely was wondering what was going on there. I thought, surely have I said? I was wondering if I'd said something. I thought, what's going on? If you'd have wrote the same thing, that would have been really weird.
Wouldn't that have been impressive?
Yeah, I was wondering what was going on then. 100% Lanzo in Mark Trust. Yeah, well, obviously see where we are.
Which one, Lanzo? Me or the other man?
One? Yeah. Got to be more specific.
It's got to be both, surely. I'll wait for Lanzo to reply.
I'm not giving anything away, but I trust the other Mark even more now, and all will be made clear on later this week.
Indeed. And just while we're on that, there was a comment I was going to bring up a bit earlier on before those questions that came in. Where has it gone? That one. If you haven't seen it already, go and check it out. I said to Deb after that interview went out, I think Paula's going to be interviewing Deb soon. I think that's the way that this is going. But and if you saw the supporters club tweet earlier, might be a couple more on the way. So keep an eye on their Twitter for that. I don't know. Mark's kind of just nodding. I think that's a sign. But yeah, keep an eye on their channel as well.
Okay, I'm not going to tell you who. There are 2 exclusive podcasts dropping promos. One promo is going to dropping tomorrow, which is tomorrow. One is dropping. The other promo will drop Thursday. For the full interviews, will be released Wednesday and Friday.
See, there you go. Make sure you check out the Sports Club channel for that.
And just before again, not giving anything away, one of the most important questions is answered, and we have a definitive answer as well on it. And Barry's going to be very interested in the answer.
Indeed. So 100% make sure you check that out.
That action.
Because
yeah, but you might not like the answer though, Barry.
Yeah, 100. Oh yes, Lanzo. I agree with that one as well. That's what we want to see. More stuff with the team and things like that. What's going on here? Sandy, United. I was wondering what you're putting Villa then. It's because we play them on Saturday. I'm completely out of the loop. I am. But there we are. We will be doing a full preview, Sandy, on Thursday. We've got currently an Aston Villa journalist, and we will have a Villa fan as well join us for that one. So yeah, Thursday at 7 for the full Villa preview. I wanted to get onto the last section of this kind of show. That it kind of ties in to the Glazer ownership a little bit, but we saw over the weekend. Now, obviously, we all know Newcastle were taking over this year. They've obviously had a lot of was it this year or last year? I can't remember. They've been taking over recently anyway. They've obviously had a lot of money pumped into the men's side, but also it's worth noting that the women's side have had a lot of investment as well. And I think the owner actually came out and said that they want to be in the WSL within 5 years, I'm pretty sure she said. Or they want to be in the Champions League by 5 or 6 years. It was a really bold claim at the time because it required 4 promotions and then in the top 3 within 2 seasons of the WSL. But we saw again, played the game at St James's Park, nearly, I think it was 28,000, 29,000. This is a tier 4 women's side, and they're smashing some WSL records. So I guess my kind of question ties into the new ownership. Do you think a new ownership would change that at Old Trafford? And I think, where do you think we're going to get to on Saturday, tying it into this week into Old Trafford in terms of ticket sales, where we think we're up to? What do you think is a good number, I guess? We'll start with that question. What is a good number? After seeing that Newcastle figure, what's a good number on Saturday, do you think? I think it was just shy of 21,000 last year. Barry, I'll come to you first. What are you expecting this time around? I know it's only Aston Villa, but I know it's not a big WSL name, but do you think we should be beating 30,000? And do you think we will, actually?
Who were Newcastle playing again? They were playing...
Or now you've got me.
You look for that. But I just think 4th tier, to get that amount of people, that number of people into a stadium is just unbelievable, really, for a 4th tier team.
They've just been drew against Wolves in the FA Cup as well, and Wolves are top of tier 3, so that's going to be a big test for them at home as well. So that's probably going to be another one at St James's Park for you.
That's what I mean. It's about putting it in a place where fans identify with. Mark spoke about playing Barnsley. So I didn't think it was anything special, and that's what I mean. Not a big name, or like Sunderland, where you would have expected to get quite a lot, but I just think football needs to be played at the home of your team. I feel that deep in my bones, because it's what you identify with. We're all sitting here excited about a women's team playing at Old Trafford, but Old Trafford is our home. We're singing that song, United Road, Take Me Home. When we sing about, I see the Stretford end arising, not we see the terrace we don't stand in much arising. We see the Stretford end arising. We talk about Old Trafford. All of those things that we do, all of our songs, that's our home, our spiritual home, our actual home. And so I struggle in that respect. Yes, you can play somewhere else and have it as your home, but Old Trafford is where you want to be. And I think for me, we need to be packing that place out more and more. The fact that we got 40,000 in the Emirates for the Arsenal game shows that the appetite is there for football. There is the ability to get people in, but we 100% need more. And I've got to say, I don't know if you were going to bring this one up, but I agree with this in some ways, because, we're doing our bit here on the channel. I know that the Supporters Club are doing their bit as well. But if you compare this to last year, when we had the first game back, I don't know that I've seen as much. I've seen a few pictures and things like that, but it doesn't seem as in my face as it was last year. And I don't know if that was on purpose or not. Maybe they felt that by doing that, that was why they ended up with the 21,000 that they had. But I don't know. My layman's opinion is you should have more than 28,000 people for a match that includes 2 WSL clubs if you're playing it at your home stadium. But this comes back to the discussion, shall we say, that we had the other day, Connor, about the standard of clubs that you have in that match. And I think bigger matches would have pulled in bigger crowds. But there we go. Let's have a professional talk about it now, because Mark knows what he wants to say. He's been itching to get in for the last 30 seconds.
No, I think Barry's made some really good points. I think that there's the argument that most WSL games should be played at men's grounds. However, when you look at the likes of Leicester, who predominantly play everything at the King Power, it's almost, there's only a couple of thousand there. Would Old Trafford look good with a couple of thousand stuck in there? Probably not. So I get the argument of games being played at the men's stadium. The Emirates was great, and I stand by everything I've said on podcasts when you come in the comments to say that game at the Emirates was as close as you're going to get to a men's game ever. What number will I be happy with? If we don't hit over 30,000, I will be upset. Personally, I think we need to go for over 30,000. I also think Barry's exactly right on the opposition. It's Villa. Could they have picked a different game? Probably, but this is falling in perfectly with the Men's World Cup on. The pitches are being used. So I think there's all those things that you have to take into context about the Old Trafford game. Do I think they could do more advertising? I think you're going to be seeing more and more as we get closer to the game. I think they're going to do it gradually instead of just dropping it all on us like they did last time. I think it'll be a gradual build up until then. So I think that's where we are. Look, I think someone's put a picture on Twitter. They're changing the fronting of Old Trafford again to have the women on it, which is great. The fact that they're doing that. But you know what? It depends on what's going to happen on with the crowd on Saturday. It depends on what the weather's going to do as well, because that'll keep people away. And ultimately, I think this comes back to the bigger argument of our tickets too cheap that you can just not bother going. And that's it. It's that ever-ending circle of if it's sunny, we'll go. If it's raining, we're not going to go. And then you've just got all these questions, the opposition, and everything else. For me, what I want is LSV sold out first. Once you pack out LSV at every single game, then the argument can be made to move to a bigger ground. But until then, I don't think we can make that argument.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because I use Newcastle as an example just because I recently took over their 4th tier. Like I said, me and a few other people I know, Barry, you go to lower tier games as well. You're lucky if you get a couple of hundred. The fact that they're getting 30 odd, and you mentioned Leicester there, Mark. I said this to Shaban on the show that we did last week, that the 2 teams that play at men's grounds or the home stadiums more often, which is Reading and Leicester, are the bottom 2 in the league right now. And you go to those 2 grounds and they're pretty much empty most of the time, or it looks empty.
They're also soulless. Like Reading, you just wander about and hope that the place you're sitting in isn't going to get you told off by some geezer in a fluorescent jacket who feels like having a go at you that day. Because again, there's no sensible decision with regards to where we stand, and the same thing happened with Leicester. The sooner they realise that if you give these away fans what they need, they might end up getting more fans. But then also, you talk about them being bottom of the table. Well, is that perhaps why they're not getting any fans in? Because the football's dying.
I definitely think it's a factor. I speak to a couple of Leicester fans and said I don't want to. keep going to watch my team lose, 9-0 to Chelsea and 7 to Arsenal, whatever it was last season from a Leicester point of view. Just answering Ian's question quickly, have they decorated the ground again? They've put something up on the side, but they've interestingly put a caption that says changes here. Now, the timing of that's a little bit with the whole statement that came out last week. And what's annoyed me about it a little bit is obviously people have tweeted that and automatically assume that's something about the Glazers when it isn't. It's kind of taking a little bit away from the fact that it's for the women's team rather than, and you know what Twitter's like sometimes. But
did it say that last time? What did it say last time on the front?
Change the game.
Change the game.
It was change the game, which we were. So I can say this now. So we were in a kind of a meeting, and they wanted us to put everything that we put out was hashtag change the game. However, as we found out to our detriment, the longer we kept on doing it, every time you put in hashtag change the game, it brought up the Chicago White Sox thing, because that was their logo as well. So we kind of stopped it straight away.
Yeah, it's. I think. Well, as Deb said, there changes here as the current manager. Yeah, I mean, it's just what Twitter's like. People jump to just because of that statement last week. It's just is what it is. But yes, in answer to your question, Ian, they have changed the, or they've certainly put something on the where the glass is anyway. I don't know whether they've done anything else in and around Old Trafford. I'm sure they might put some other stuff as the week goes on. But yeah, in terms of tickets, yeah, I agree. I think we've got to be hitting 30 this time around. I get it's only Villa. And I agree with Tony's point a bit earlier on. Liverpool would have been the one for me. It's near my birthday as well. But, Liverpool, that's the one. There's some talk potentially. I don't know whether, Mark, you've heard any different, but I keep hearing that the last game of the season could be at Anfield. I don't know whether that's changing.
Oh, sorry, you wait. Yeah,
not this one. But the Liverpool away could be at Anfield. I keep getting told.
Yeah, there was talk of having the City game at Old Trafford, but it's the Manchester Marathon that following day, and it's a whole logistics issue for the club. So they scrapped that, unfortunately. So they were going to try and have 2 this season, but they scrapped 1, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'd like to see it in the next 18 months. I'd love to see a United women's game at Old Trafford that is either the Derby, Chelsea, Arsenal, or even Liverpool. I know they're not a great WSL side, but just having that as a derby at Old Trafford, I'd love to see that.
Look, we were all stood in J this March for the Villa game, and you could tell. For the Everton game, and you could tell that the atmosphere was a bit low, a bit dull. What you want is the atmosphere to. What you really want is the atmosphere from LSV to come to where we are, and I think it's so difficult to get something going at Old Trafford. You want big games there, of course you do. You don't want the Villas and the with all due respect, the Evertons. You want the Cities, the Chelseas, the Arsenals.
Yeah,
we do. Look at the 3 that we've had: West Ham, Everton, Villa. Can you think of a rivalry that we've had with them? I mean, I can recall West Ham stopping us from winning the league that time when we were trying. Blackburn ended up winning it. And that was so long ago, I've almost forgotten about that. Villa and Everton 4-4. That's about the biggest thing I can think of that's really happened between us two. So it's not there. But even like you say, Liverpool recently promoted. It carries that rivalry. It's still there. Yeah. You're more likely, I feel, to get the Man United fan that goes to watch the men go, well, do you know what? It's in Old Trafford. It's nearby. I'll go for that.
And I think that's part of the problem with some people right now is that, you said it on, I think, Friday night, Barry, that the World Cup's on. You're not even interested in watching it. And I think right now, if you can't get people into Old Trafford for £6, and it is only £6, to come and watch 90 minutes of football, you're never going to do it. And I've got people who sit behind me at Old Trafford who will not come and watch a women's game because they've got no interest in it. They said they never watched the Euros, they won't watch women's football, they've got no interest in it. And that's fine. They've got their opinion. I can handle that. But right now, it's 12:30 on a Saturday. There is no real argument for you not to come. There's no men's football unless you go to watch Salford or Oldham or Altrincham or any of the more local teams that are still playing. There is no argument why you can't go. You're watching a Man United team.
Agreed. I don't really know what else to add, so I won't on that one. But a resident photographer, Deborah's going to get some pictures for us, I think. Grab a pic on the way in from work, and is that correct, Mark? Half marathon.
Yeah, sorry, Dad.
Signing Deb up for a full marathon there, I think.
It's a half marathon on the way out, and she's just got to do it on the way back to get.
Well, what I'm going to do is make a run after the car home, which is another 13 miles, so it should be fine.
Before we wrap this up, then, Mark, the supporters club at Old Trafford, I've kind of tired this. I've still not thought of how I'm going to ask you. So, what can people expect? You know, I know you did a couple of things last year. Around, obviously, you've got the banner up at Old Trafford now. What are the flags going to be there? Where can people find the songbook if they're stood in Jays? All of those details there.
So we're going to be in the corner in J stand. I think we're mostly all in N2402, which is safe standing. So we're all going to be stood. The banner, our MUWSC banner, is going to be directly above us, so everyone will know where we're situated. All the flags were dropped off last week. So they've had them print in advance. They were dropped off by Debs. I couldn't make it because I love an opportunity to go and walk around Old Trafford. You've just got to take the chance. So they were there. The songbook can be found on our website. If you go to, I'm going to do this in the form of Alan Keegan because if you go to all the w's.muwsc.co.uk. There's a link there for the songbook. It's downloadable. You can put it on your phones. The only thing we ask for anyone who is going to the game, can you please, if you can, be in your seats 5 minutes at least before kickoff because we will be starting Bring On United. That's the only thing. And just join in with the songs. There is no swear words in our songs, although sometimes Barry and I might occasionally slip and say the odd swear word, but that's just the way it is, unfortunately. What else have we got going on? That's really it. Just come down, enjoy yourselves. It's going to be a fun day and a win as well.
My understanding is the songbook in Everton cost a couple of quid, so I should imagine based on that, it must cost about £5 or £10 to download a songbook.
Ours is completely free of charge. It's free of charge. And if you've got any songs you would like to add into the songbook, let us see. Let's have them, and we'll try and put them in. Can't say fairer than that.
You can't.
In fact, on the way down to Arsenal, we had a new song ready. We started it on the coach. It went off at Arsenal. And I guarantee on Saturday, it will be one of the first songs you will hear from all of us because it'll be the one we go, should we? Let's do it. And we just go. And players' badges, hats, scarves, wristbands, all the lot. And also exclusive podcast this week.
Love it.
Indeed. Yeah, so like I said, make sure you go and check all that out. I've put the link to the website there. If anyone doesn't know what it is, which I'm sure you do, and the supporters from Twitter is probably the easiest thing to type to find. It's 5 letters plus an underscore in there somewhere, I think. But I'm pretty sure if you just type in MUWSC, it comes up anyway as the top one. So make sure you follow them. Like I said, keep an eye out for those podcasts as well because they will be good listens. What's going on? And the Oscar goes to Barry. What's
his overacting? It was good acting. I thought it was good.
God,
I'd like to thank my mum, my dad, everyone having taken me for Connor for this opportunity.
Yeah,
Brian for all his love and support.
I'm pretty sure that song's going to be sung quite
I think Shane and I have had a kind of a word about what we're going to try and do. We're going to try and do both versions of the 12 days. So we're going to do the Haley Ladd version. We are going to do the Eric Cantona version because we are at Old Trafford and it is 30 years since he signed. So it's only right that he should have his song sung as well. We're going to do the new Maya Letitia one because it was just bouncing at the Emirates. We're going to just do it all. We're going to try and go for a full 90 minutes if we can, if voices can hold up. And I'll be looking at John Devonport to be leading us off in most of them.
No, 100%. Look forward to that. We'll wrap it up there then. When are we back, Barry? You're back on Wednesday, aren't you? So,
Wednesday Fans Forum live from Stevenage. As ever, I shall be there. And then we're on Thursday as well, where we will be previewing, because there's a little match happening on Saturday that's not been mentioned much lately. So we're previewing that as well, aren't we? And then Saturday, we'll be getting all the info, all the goss. And I'll be seeing, if I can do my very best, David Bailey again, and see if I can capture another great last-minute goal or something like that, because that would be, well, hopefully not a last-minute winner against Villa. I hope we'd have nailed that a little bit earlier.
I don't know if I could take another last-minute goal.
No, not against Villa. Probably winning that about 4-1.
As I say, I'm hoping we've wrapped it up by then. But so we'll be back on Wednesday and Thursday. For those two, Mark, I think you've been summoned. Your kettle's on. So enjoy your tea or your coffee, whichever one you have in there.
A mug or a spoon, Connor?
Do what? Do I use a mug or a spoon? What's going on there?
For your drinks?
Straw. I'm joking.
The thing is, Connor, we would all believe it if you said it.
And this is why he only has 3 hot drinks a year, because he's scared of burning his mouth.
I had 3 by 11 o'clock this morning.
What? That's Sang will have one. No. You don't need them. Just literally, what did I say to you? Diet Coke, water. That's all you need.
Coke Zero, cup of tea. It's still.
I can't wait for the next poll, Connor. When's the next poll coming out?
That should be Connor's wrestling name or his dance name. Connor Cutlery Roberts. That's the one. Up to the hockey next is Connor Cutlery Roberts.
Could his finisher be the ladle?
In answer to your question, Barry, when's the next poll coming out? I'm not doing another one after the embarrassment of the last one.
We did already.
You were so sure. Oh, I get 20% easy. 20% easy.
Yeah, I underestimated, but like I said, I got a few people backing me up, which was something more than I thought. Pizza with hands up. Depends on how I'm feeling, to be honest. Sometimes using knife and fork, but most of the time it is hands for a pizza. I've got to be honest. I'm not that weird. What's wrong with that?
I think you're making that up.
Well, sometimes you just like to cut. Oh, I'm not going to explain it again.
How? Makes no sense.
I don't know what's happened. Why is Sang falling out of his chair?
Did you eat pizza with a knife and fork? Why else?
Well, just make it smaller, don't you? It's easier. I don't know.
Well, just take small bites, then. It's the same thing.
I hijacked your end again. Sorry, I didn't mean to do it, but I couldn't help it. It was just there to be done.
I don't know. I'm sure this is going to rumble on. I might be on the fans forum on Wednesday, so I'm sure Barry's going to bring this up again at some point. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, make sure you check out Fans Forum on Wednesday. I might be on that, I might not. And also, if you haven't already, Barry announced this last week. We're doing a little All for United Christmas #1 as well. So I'm sure that'll be brought back around as a wider topic on Wednesday for everyone to get their little votes in on that one. I don't know where we're up to, Barry, but I'm pretty sure I think the Martin Ciccio one was quite far out before the last time I looked. But
it certainly started well.
So yeah, Barry, you can explain that one on Wednesday when we bring that all back up as well. But yeah, thank you, Mark, and for Barry for coming on. Thanks to everyone in the comments. You've been excellent. Make sure you're liking the video and subscribing if you are new around here, and we shall see you in the next one.